Well, folks, I'm back at the MX-5 and it's time to start getting the engine and gearbox ready to go back into the car. First thing I need to do is I need to get the gearbox there, mate it up with the engine here. Now, for those of you wondering why the gearbox is up on its end here and the garage looks like a disaster zone, it's because off camera I changed the oil in the gearbox and the filter in the pan here. Now, be warned, if you were changing the filter, there is a bolt that goes through there that has a nut on the other side, and it means you have to take the valve body off to get the damn thing off. Now, I took the valve body off and a couple of things went boing, and then it was a bit of a faff to try and figure out how everything went to get it all back together again. So anyway, just proceed with caution is all I'm telling you. It can be done, but it's not as straightforward as you would think. The reason one of the things went boing is because in my effort to try and get the bolt back in, I took a little plate off the side and it's one of the valves was in there, and it was like a spring, a plunger, a washer, another plunger and a plate, and I had to try and figure out what orientation they all went together in. Typical enough stuff, but anyway, there you go. So right, anyway, let's get the torque converter installed in this first of all. I've never installed an automatic gearbox onto a car before, so I'm going to be trying to figure my way around this. So far as I can tell anyway, the reason you have to install the gearbox, or install the torque converter into the gearbox instead of onto the engine first, is because there are like 3 different sets of splines that the torque converter needs to mesh up with in the gearbox. And you will never get them all to mesh up when it's actually when the torque converter is already on the engine. It's just you run the risk of doing too much damage. So anyway, there's the inner shaft, outer shaft, and then the oil pump there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just give a little wipe of the bell housing here anyway, just to wipe any crap out of it. Just I like to keep things, well, not spotlessly clean, but you know, there's oil where there shouldn't be oil. There's what clean it up. There's one of our spline shafts. I'll just give that a wipe there. Pop back in. Now, in you go. Okay, and yeah, you see there's like splines down the very end there. So that's in now, right? So next, we're going to get a torque converter and we're going to pop that on. Right, so there is the torque converter, and you will see that there are 2 sets of splines inside and there's a flat on this. Now the flat is going to be the bit that drives the oil pump so far as I know. I might be wrong with that, but anyway, we need to offer that up. Okay. Okay, so that's in now, right? I felt it going down the 3 kind of clicks, and I could feel everything is rotating correctly. I think it's about like 10 millimeters between the head of the bolt and the face of the gearbox is what you're looking for there, in around that, or maybe 15 mil from the flange of the bolt, the studs there. So anyway, wipe. These are special nuts. They're M10 by 1 fine thread, so they're a 1 mil pitched thread. So I had to actually go and buy special nuts for it, which was kind of annoying, but that's what we had to do. So right, so that's that. My understanding here is that there's a plate at the bottom, and that plate is actually where you're supposed to be able to tighten these. So what we're going to do is I'm going to actually pop that off there now. There's just slide it forward a little bit. The dolly is actually dead handy for doing this kind of thing. So there's 2 yeah, it's just 2 10mm nuts. Look, if it's not supposed to come off, I'll just put it back on again after the fact. Alright, that's that off. I'll give that a little clean as well while it's off. It's a bit bent as well, so we'll straighten it too. Okay, so that gives us an access port in the bottom of the bell housing here. And if we rotate that, then you'll see you can actually get your your nut onto the torque converter there, and you'll be able to tighten it up. At least that's my theory anyway, and I'm sticking with it. Okay, so let's move this around here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the engine hoist to raise the engine up to the correct height, and then hopefully the two will just slot together. They won't, of course, but you can always live in hope. So this dolly is actually dead handy for having the gearbox on, and the fact that the gearbox sits flat is handy too. Right, so let's lift this up a bit. So what I've done is I've rotated the engine so that the bolt hole for the torque converter on the flex plate there is at the bottom. And what we're going to do now is just bring this over here. Alright, so a couple of bolts here, drop the engine down a bit, and I'm hoping that if we just right, I'm wondering if I use a small trolley jack here actually and just lift the front of the engine. Unfortunately I haven't got one of those levelling beams for the lift, but we'll make do with what we have. We're really not looking to go that much. What I'm trying to do now is turn the torque converter so that it lines up with the bolt holes on the flex plate. Alright. Alright. So there is the gearbox is now on the engine. The bolts are sticking through the flex plate. The studs are sticking through the flex plate, so we can get the nuts on it now and tighten them up. Alright, so here are these special nuts. So I'm going to put a bit of Loctite in each one. And we're going to pop it on, rotate the engine a quarter turn, pop the next one on, but we're not going to tighten them. We're just going to basically have them in position, and then we'll go around again and we'll tighten them. So this could be awkward. I wonder if I stick a couple more bolts in the engine and actually just lift it up. I mean, it's not going to go anywhere now. Like it's, yeah. We'll get the engine mount, the engine to gearbox bolts in, and then at least I can actually lift the whole operation up in the air instead of trying to crouch down underneath like that, because that's a bit of a faff. Right. Let's get this whole assembly up in the air now. Yeah, I prefer not to be working on the engine while it's up on the hoist like this, but what choice have I got? So let's I can get them through the starter hole. That's an awful lot easier. Right, I'll bring you back when this is all done. I thought for a horrible second there I just sheared one of the studs on the torque converter, but no, the engine just rotated. Oh my god, that would have been just my luck. I didn't even know how that would happen. I mean, they're like an M10 stud. Right, last one. Okay, I don't have a torque figure for these. I'm just going to go fully tight, let's just say. So, given the fact I can't get a torque wrench on them anyway, I mean, what choice have I got? So, what I'm going to do is okay, I'm going to get them tightened up and I'll bring it back. Alright, so there's the engine and gearbox together and all bolted up and tight. So yeah, the next thing to do is stick the starting motor onto it. And what I actually am thinking I might do is put some oil in the engine and gearbox. Actually, maybe not such a good idea. I was thinking put some oil in the engine and gearbox and spin them over on the starter before even putting them in the car. The problem is, though, is the fact that if I were to put oil in the gearbox, it's going to pour out down there. So I need to basically put the oil in when it's all in the car. Look, everything looks okay, so we're going to continue. I did a couple of jobs off camera today, like there was an exhaust stud that needed replacing as well. Which was great fun actually, because I had to drill it out in the end, even though I tried welding nuts and everything like that onto it. And yeah, even getting the engine and gearbox mated up and all that sort of stuff took a bit of faffing off camera. So right, anyway, I'm going to leave it there for today for myself, and I'll pick this back up tomorrow with you guys. Alright, so now that it's a few days later and we've got the engine and gearbox mated together and all of the torque converter nuts tight and everything like that, I can now move on to some of the outside bits that I want to get bolted on before we actually put the engine and gearbox into the car. Now, I went over to Robert McGuire, who has been supplying me parts for a lot of this project, which is fantastic, and I have picked up a few things, like a couple of pipes that I needed, like these pipes were obviously bent into an S-hook, like, you know, they're no use to me. So I have new ones of them. We're going to get the vacuum line connected up as well, which goes up there, and try and sort out the wiring mess that's going on down here and everything as well. And we're going to just kind of assess everything and see what we can put right before it goes into the car. Obviously things like the starting motor is going to need to go on and all that as well. So let's get stuck in anyway. I'm going to start with that vacuum pipe. There's a blank down here on the manifold, and it literally just goes onto that. So we take that off. Jubilee clip on it, so we'll just use that Jubilee clip. You know what, I actually might see if I have any of those springy clips, because that seems to be what they use everywhere else in the car, so we may as well stay consistent. So I'll have a look now. No, I don't have one, but what I do have is a proper hose clip, so that will do a neater job of this. Alright, so there's the vacuum pipe on there now with the suitable clip, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tackle this mess of wires here and see what we can see, if we can get it looking a bit better. The bit I don't get right is this has all been cut here, okay, but there's no cut wires on the car. So is this the original automatic gearbox out of this car, or is it out of another one? In any case, I look at the sump, and there isn't there isn't the remains of the clutches left behind in the oil pan for it, so it's not actually bad inside. It looks a bit piggy outside, but these clips are a pain in the face. Let me just get some sort of a podger or something to undo them. Okay, there's that old wiring harness removed. So all of our connectors should be able to just plug in here. So there's supposed to be obviously some sort of a doofer for that to go onto there. I mean, it's down the bottom, but it's broken. Anyway, look, it's not the end of the world. Cable tie will get us out of trouble in that one. Right, okay, so we've got our electrical connector sorted. I'm going to take the shift rod off here because, well, because I have a funny feeling it might just get in the way. So, take that off. It's only held on with a split pin, so I can always stick a new split pin in it. But for the time being, I'll just pop that back in there. It's not quite a split pin, it's more sort of an oar clip kind of thing, but split pin would do fine. Alright, so there's our shift rod off. Now, I'm going to leave that out because I reckon the dipstick will also get in the way. That'll be going up along there, so there's no point in making hardship for ourselves. Next thing I want to do is I want to have a look at the oil pipes on the other side of the gearbox. They're going to come up along the gearbox, over there, through there, and up in front of the alternator. So get them on now, and at least that way then I'm not trying to fooster around on the top of the gearbox when it's in the car, because I have a funny feeling that could be a bit of a pain. I'd also like to see if I can kind of tidy up the aluminium a little bit. I might see if there's something I can use just to kind of bring that up a little bit better. I know it's going to be underneath the car, nobody's going to see it, but still, I'll know, and yeah, if I can get it a little bit better, I will. Alright, so I'm just going to undo these two banjo fittings. One here and one here. Then there's P-clips here and here. And then we kind of need to try and trace the rest of the route there. There's probably something that goes up around there as well. So it's going to take a little bit of kind of detective work to figure out what way this is all supposed to go. But we'll just take our time. There's an argument that in the Irish climate, the gearbox oil cooler is not actually needed, but I'm going to be installing it. End of story. So it's part of the car, and if Mazda thought it necessary, it's going to get it. Okay, and that's that. So now, right, there's our oil cooler pipes off. Okay, so let's see the new pipes and how they might go. So, fortunately enough, they're not all bent into a bunch here. So, it's going to go in behind there. Now this brings me straight back to building APUs, putting all the pipe work onto them. I don't have new copper crush washers, they'll be fine though. So anyway, right, let's tighten that nut up there, because that was already on it, so hopefully you won't need to move anything there. And that's chasing around the other side of the engine as expected. And hopefully this one will do the same thing. Okay, so there's our two oil cooler pipes on this side of the gearbox done, and we'll have a look at the other side now. Right, so before I put these pipes on, I'm actually going to put the starting motor on, and that's simply because of the fact that the pipes I think will probably be in the way if they're all clamped into place. So I feed that up into there now. Now, okay, now I need to take a bolt out there. I remember I put that bolt in just for kind of safekeeping, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to get that out, and then we can get everything put back in. Just leave that there loosely, and there's 3 bolts to put in here then as well. Alright, so the threads have all started on them, so I can run them home now with the impact gun. Alright, so that's the starting motor home and done. So now we can look at these. And see the way, straight away, we're looking at a bracket here, which wasn't there before, so we need to figure out what way these go. I asked the question what's supposed to go there, and it's this bracket here. So that goes there like that. So yeah, so we'll get that on as well. Just want to make sure that it's a standard thread. You know, it's one of the very annoying things about this car is that everything seems to be a bloody fine thread. I'm telling you now, there is zero information about the automatic gearboxes on the internet about these for these cars. So anyway, I had to try and figure it out for myself. So anyway, there is the oil cooler pipes on there and there. They're clipped on here and here. Then we go up over the gearbox. And then there is another little bracket that goes here, and there's a threaded hole in the bell housing for that. Up along here, and then there's another bracket that comes down off one of the fasteners for the alternator, which you can see under there. And that's where they attach. And then you'll see the 2 pipes here go left and right, which will go into the oil cooler, which is part of the main coolant radiator. So I've now got this on as well, and start motor is in and tight, and that's all sorted out. So next thing I want to do is, before I go any further with the engine, is I want to get the air conditioning compressor on. And it turned out I actually needed a bracket for that, which I was also missing, which would have gone here. So I'm going to clean out the holes for those, the holes in the block there for that bracket, because you know if I don't what'll happen. And we're going to get that bracket on, get the air conditioning compressor fitted, and then I want to figure out what the story is with the power steering pump bracketry here as well, because the adjuster was missing. Now, I got a few bits and pieces there off Robert to see if I can get it working or figure it out. I may have to fabricate something as well. Right, so I have the bracket on here. on aside from one bolt, because these are metric fine thread bolts. It's really annoying me, this is, because I don't have a stock of metric fine thread bolts, and I don't have any taps for them or anything like that. I had to try and clean out the holes with dosing them with WD-40 and wire wheel and all this jazz, like, you know, so it was a pain in the face. And then I get the aircon pump, go to offer it up, and the bloody thing doesn't fit. So it's either the wrong, well, it is the wrong aircon pump, but what the story is with it, I don't know. I have to try and find one that actually does fit the car. So anyway, look, for the moment I'll just have to run without it. It means I have to get a belt for a car that doesn't have the aircon as well, because I have no power steering pump then as well. Anyway, look, it is what it is. For the time being, it's all we can do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to regroup and come up with another plan. I think we're probably at the point where we could probably start putting the engine into the car, and then we can figure out the rest of the stuff when it's actually in it. But we're pretty good in that regard, actually, in all fairness. So you know, there is progress being made here. It's just I keep encountering all these kind of hurdles as well, which are proving a little annoying at times, but we'll get there in the end. I'm not going to let this beat me. Alright folks, there's no time like the present to get the engine into the car. So let's get stuck in, shall we? Right, so we're up against the same issue we had last time, which is that the car is too high, so I actually need to take it down off the axle stands. Although I can't... Yeah, I'm trying to think here. Just put the headlights down anyway to keep them out of harm's way one way or another. Alright, that might work for us now. I'm thinking maybe the other option here is to shorten the strap. So let the whole operation down, because the straps are too long as well. That's the other side of it. So if I just have a strap that goes, if I just use one of these two, that might be better. Yeah, let's do that. I'll let it down and we'll regroup, because this is just not working for us right now. Alright, yeah, and that's just sitting on the yoke of the bob there now. So take this shackle off here. And I think we're business here now. Yeah, we are. We're getting there. Alright. So now I'm up against the next issue I had, and that's that my engine hoist is up against the front panel. So I suppose all I can do is really just give the engine a shove to try and get it into position. I'm going to try it and see. So get it down a little bit lower first of all. Alright, so I've got a steel bar up against the bottom pulley here now, just to try and push the engine back in the car a bit more. Oh, hang on now. There we go. I actually just pulled it through the hole where the gear shift goes. Alright, so now I should be able to drop down a little bit more. As I drop down, it moves further forward as well, or back in the car, I mean. Right, I'm going to get a jack under the tail of the gearbox. This is absolutely breaking my heart trying to get this bloody thing in. I'm like that close to getting the bolts to drop into the holes on the bodywork. on the engine mounts, and I just cannot get that last little bit. It's driving me mental, and I'm exhausted, to be honest with you. So I need to try and change my approach. What I'm finding is happening is that's hitting the scuttle at the back there, and the engine is inclined to pull forward all the time on the hoist. So that's why I have the block of wood there between the pulley and the anti-roll bar. And I've been trying to lift the tail of the gearbox with a jack, let it down, move it around, do a dance, say a prayer. I've tried bloody everything at this stage, and I'm at wit's end. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take it off the hoist, and I'm actually going to put it on a trolley jack underneath, because in my mind that will allow for more movement, so I can move it left and right, wobble the engine a little bit and lift it up a little bit if I need to, drop it down, and yeah, I won't have the limitations of the hoist, because essentially you've only got one point of balance, whereas you can kind of shift the balance around a little bit otherwise. So let's hope it works. Jesus, that was a bit close for comfort. Okay, so we're back to using the hoist here, because the trolley jack just meant that the engine was top heavy and wasn't going in where we wanted it to go. So what we need to do is lift the gearbox up. You can swing out of that, basically, see how you go. Or I can try it.
Okay.
Just keep an eye on things there, basically, and
Okay.
I'll see if I can lift up the gearbox.
Yeah. Like.
It's literally there.
Literally. Yeah.
And you see, I think once that goes in, the other one will go in
That's
easy.
what I'm thinking, yeah.
I'll just get the nut on that one anyway, so it doesn't come back out again.
God, no. I'm just thinking, put the cable tie back
Just
around it again.
Hold on a second, let me just try something here.
Because of my kids. That it?
Oh!
Woo!
I think it went in. Hold on a
I
second.
was like, I'm scared to say whether it did because you can't see.
Yeah, no, it's hot. I'm going to grab the nut
Okay.
and I'm going to just go in, and it treads in underneath the wheel arch.
Okay, so you'll see it then.
I feel it more than see it.
Yeah, that too. That's what I was saying, there's like the cable tie on and I'd be able to see.
Yes, there it is.
Is it in?
It's in.
Oh, brilliant.
What you can do is,
So this nut basically is going in that big slot there?
yeah.
Okay.
So what I think I could do is if I go in and try and pull the gearbox over this way,
Okay.
it'll, yeah, that will do it, because I'm just looking, it's off centre anyway.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes!
Is it in?
Woo! Yeah!
Great, happy good days. Oh my god, what a pain in the ass that job was.
Oh, brilliant.
Right.
High five.
Yes, thank you for your help.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for the car.
Right, I'm just going to get the nuts on.
Okay.
Okay folks, so it's a couple of days later, and obviously I've got the car up on the ramp, and next thing to do now is to get the power plant frame in, which is the brace that goes basically between the differential and the gearbox. And then once we have that in, then we can call the engine and gearbox in, and then I can actually start buttoning everything up and actually putting all the other bits and pieces on. We'll get as much done underneath the car as we can while it's up on the ramp. Then we can drop it down and get the bits on the top done. So the likes of the power plant frame, as I said, the exhaust, the drive shaft, there's wiring under the car, speedometer cable, a whole host of stuff, to be honest with you. So let's get stuck in anyway and get that power plant frame on first. We're going to do the differential end first. So these are the top hat bushings. So this will go in over the top. And then there'll be one on the bottom of this one as well. So you'll see that there's obviously a larger hole, so the one is pretty self-explanatory. So that's going to go down over that. just going to go up through there, thread into the bushing. And just once we get it starting, we know it's not going to go anywhere. All right. So there's the start on it now, right? So the bushing is going down into the hole. So we got our other bolt in there now as well. The other bolt doesn't have the bottom bushing; it just has the top one. Right. Maybe we'll just leave this one out until we've got the gearbox on, because the problem is the front end of the brace needs to move towards the gearbox. So until we've done that, the hole's just not going to line up. So we'll leave that out for the moment, and we'll have a look at the gearbox end. Now at the moment, I have a strap going up into the car, holding the gearbox up. So that's kind of what's keeping everything in place there. Now we're going to get our bottom bolts in as well now. I think I'll just clean this one up on a wire wheel. Alright, so now should be able to just lift this up here. Give it a little shove. I might need to just lift the gearbox up. There you go. Alright. Now that bolt will go in there. Oh god. Set the bolt. Right, there's 2 bolts to go in there, and so I'll get the second one in, and then I'll be able to get the back one in again then. At least this time we're through the hole without a problem. Okay. We'll just run that up a little bit there. Okay, let's start getting things tightened up here, and then we can get there is actually, I just noticed the automatic gearbox has one less mounting point on the forward end, so that's it's good to know. Well, that came out. All right. All right, I'm gonna see if I can get a torque figure for them and throw a torque wrench on them. At least that way, then we know our power plant frame is in, and that basically means our gearbox is supported at the back end of it, and the differential is supported as well. And then the next thing we can do is get the drive shaft in. So that's just even getting that in is a big win. 112 is what I'm going with here. So bloody tight. Alright, and we do the back now as well. Alright, there we go. I think it is important to torque them, to be honest with you. You can send the Yoga Duggas all you want, but if you need to get a good handle on how tight they actually really need to be, and they need to be tighter than you would expect. Next thing to go in is the drive shaft. So let's get the plastic bag off the end of the gearbox here. I have cleaned up the splined end of the drive shaft, which goes into the gearbox, so that it makes at least has some chance of making a decent seal in there. We just basically slot it in. And once it's in, then we can start getting it attached on the differential end. So I'll bring you guys around so you can see. Now you can turn the wheels of the car to get everything lined up. Once you get one bolt in again, you're kind of safe enough then, and you can start getting your nuts in place. I'm actually going to put a little bit of tread lock on them because I do not want them coming loose. You get the tread lock actually on the bolts and not all over the floor. We'd be in business. There we go. Right, yeah. Get our nuts in place there now. It's a kind of belt and braces. I know there's locking washers on them as well, but things like this are the type of bolts you really do not want coming loose. So they're 14mm bolts, and we're going to tighten them up, get a torque on them. Right, I'll get them tightened up and I'll come back to you. Right, so the wiring is actually all done there now. I did that off camera, just basically clipped up the harness along the power plant frame and got it all connected up with the gearbox end, and cleaned up an earthing point on the power plant frame as well. So that's all done and dusted. So next thing we're going to do is get the exhaust into place. Now I have this bungee cord here just to support it while I'm hanging it, because it could get a bit heavy. And all the rubber mounts for the exhaust are actually on the back section rather than the front section. So there's really nothing to support the front section as I'm grappling with it. So anyway, let's get stuck in. The eagle-eyed amongst you might notice there's missing a gearbox to engine bolt there. I need to find the bloody thing. I don't know where it's gone, but it's all the other ones are in, and I knew that would be easy to get at once the engine's in the car. So anyway, right, that's loosely assembled there. I'm just going to wrap the bungee cord around the other end just to keep it in place, and I'll tighten them up. Right, so now I can put the rear section on. I don't actually have the correct gaskets for this. I'm going to have to get a gasket set and refit the exhaust at some stage. For the time being, I have these little donut gaskets which just basically go in between the two pipes and clamp together. And to be honest with you, if they do the job, I will probably just leave them in there. I mean, sealed is sealed. We don't need to go too overboard here. So let's get the back box and everything like that offered up and hung into place loosely, and we can then start kind of trying to get everything together, and at least that'll be the exhaust out of the way, which is another kind of big bit, and then we're fairly done underneath the car. We can start looking at the top of it. Loop that in there. That's going to support that end of the exhaust while I hand fist this end into position. Need to spray it with some silicone spray or something. Just the rubber mounts, I mean, because they will slip on and off a lot easier. Alright, okay, so there we go. Yeah, there we go. See, they're on now. There we go. So there's the back box hung. So next we can start looking at getting the front part of it connected onto the cat with the exhaust gasket in between, and then we can get the rest of our hangers in position. Just had to pull up the centre part of the exhaust there a little bit just to get the two front ones on, so I just used a ratchet strap to do it. Did the trick. Not my preferred method, but sure, look, gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. Just tighten these up all the way out. Alright, so exhaust is in, power plant frame is in, drive shaft is in, gearbox wiring is done. This little temperature probe is wired in. I don't think it actually works, but there's one to do. Look, the speedometer cable needs to be done still, so I'll get that done now in a second, and then what we'll do is we'll let the car down and I'll start getting things hooked up on the top end. So that'll be the likes of the radiator, aircon condenser, the power steering pump needs to go back in, wiring, all the usual gubbins anyway, so I'll talk you through that as I go. Alright, so I've been doing a little bit of kind of fixing bits and pieces off camera just in the background. like I had to get a new mount for this power steering pump, but now I've got the belt on, the power steering pump is fitted. I just need to basically tighten everything up. So we're going to tension the belt first of all, and then we'll be able to take that one off the list, and then I'll get the radiator in. Actually, before I put the radiator in, there's a metal radiator hose I want to remove because I have a rubber one to go in its place. Alright, that's pretty good there now, so we can tighten everything up. Get that there now as well, and there's another bolt at the back of this to hold this in place, and that's everything locked up then. Now, the eagle-eyed of you may notice that I haven't got the air conditioning compressor on, and that's because, to be honest with you, I'm going to leave it out for the moment. I'll get all the pieces together that I need to actually reinstate it at a later stage, but right now all that's doing is actually just holding up the show, and I don't want that to happen. So we're going to continue on undeterred without putting the condenser in or any of that kind of carry on. So first of all, I suppose actually before I put the radiator on, I'm going to just get any of the stuff that the radiator will be in the way of into place here, and then we can kind of reassess then. I'm kind of figuring this out as I go along, as you've probably guessed. But first of all, let's get that water pipe out of the way there, coolant pipe even. There we go. There's that metal pipe out of the way, so we have a rubber one to go in, as I said anyway, so that's the rubber one would be a better job, because this one's fairly corroded looking inside anyway, and plus the bottom radiator hose wouldn't be in great nick either, so it's definitely worth changing. I mean, look at the state of that there. So that's why I got a new one. So let's put the new one in. Alright, let's get the radiator in. It's another big bit, which is always nice to see going in. Now you'll see the two pipes down the bottom on this radiator, the copper ones, they are the gearbox cooler. I suppose it's just a pipe going through the radiator that actually cools the gearbox oil. And we'll be connecting them up later on. Actually, we'll take the bolts out for the radiator first. Take these out. I might actually just run a tap through where they screw in, because experience has taught me one thing on this car, and that's that everything is corroded or is 2 seconds away from actually shearing or breaking. Right, I'll do that off camera. Okay, now a bit of copper grease on those bolts there now as well. So the bottom of the radiator kind of sits down into these two sort of hooks. That's that down there. And then the top of the radiator just has two bolts going through it, and that basically keeps it all in place. One thing I did when I had the engine out and I was pressure washing the engine bay is I cleaned out the heater core as well, so that should be nice and clean in there too. That's awkward to get at. Okay, so radiator is in, all the plumbing is done, and all the clips are on. I've got the heater core all connected up, and so now I'm going to start on the wiring. I actually already have started on the wiring. So I've got the rad fans connected up, coolant temp, power steering pump. Don't know what the connector on the power steering pump is for, but it's there anyway. We're going to figure out what way these all go now. There's a few kind of connections and stuff like that that I'm not entirely sure about, but we'll figure them out as we go along. The great thing about this car is actually you really can't go too far wrong with the wiring, because it's all like the connectors kind of line up where they're supposed to go, and it's not a case where there's like two connectors that both look the same. There's you couldn't really mix them up, is what I'm trying to say. It is the mass airflow sensor I'm putting in here now, so I can get the electrical connectors onto that afterwards. Things like the start motor and the alternator and all that are all connected up now, and yeah, basically what I'm doing is I'm just kind of working through it methodically and just taking my time. And yeah, we're getting close to the mark now at this stage. So that should go there. Peculiar place to have a fresh air supply, but there you go. Unfortunately, the mounts for this are actually all broken, unsurprisingly. So what we can do is I'll put the bolt in and we'll put a cable tie around it, and that'll keep it in place. It's not the best idea, it's not the best job in the world, but it means at least it'll be in. Alright, so aside from a few finishing touches, we're fairly done under here. I've got all the intake pipe work on, it was all pretty straightforward. I used cable ties down on the bolts down there just to keep it in place for the moment. I'll see if I can get new housing, and vacuum lines are all hooked up. Crankcase breather, that's all done. Injectors are hooked up. Now you'll see over here I have the coils disconnected because I want to be able to crank it without starting it. So that's all good. Just do a few little checks over everything here, make sure we're well there. Straight away is one thing that has to go on there. Just a little detail, but we're going to be filling it with coolant now in a minute, and then I want to fill up the gearbox oil. And then we're going to go for a crank, and we're going to see, make sure that the oil circulates around the gearbox, and then we can kind of top it off, make sure that the levels are good. The kind of finishing touches I'm talking about are sort of like, see the way there's a clip there, I don't know where it goes. I need to try and figure all that out. There's also nothing holding the gearbox dipstick in place yet either, so I also need to try and figure that out. There's kind of like, unfortunately with stuff like that, you just don't know because, you know, I mean, if it wasn't right when you took it off, then it's quite difficult to get right when you're putting it back on. I also have to take the clutch slave cylinder out as well because we're obviously not going to be using that, and then we'll have to address the stuff on the inside of the car. Now you're probably thinking, how come he didn't clean the engine when it was out, or all the parts? And the reason for that is because I didn't want to get water where it shouldn't be. So when everything's put back together again, it's watertight, but it's not watertight when you disassemble it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it all cleaned up with it in the car, basically degrease it and kind of get stuck into it once we've actually got it driving, and that way then at least you can leave it ticking over and dry it all out with the heat of the engine and all that too. It strikes me as being a better way of doing it. Yeah, okay, fair enough, I could have done the radiator and all that as well, but why do one bit and not do another? We'll just do the whole lot together, and it'll look well by then. And then I want to polish up the rocker cover and intake manifold and all the other little aluminium bits and pieces on it as well. Alright, I'm going to throw the coolant in it now first, and then we'll do the gearbox oil. Clear coolant. Okay, so now it is time to fill the gearbox. Now what I'm going to do is use this draining pump to actually fill it. And the reason I'm doing that is because it is quite awkward to fill because you have to fill it through the dipstick hole. So I have used this for draining said gearbox. So now what I can do is, Jesus, well, we can't have that happen for a start. So stick that down into the dipstick hole, like so. Stick this into our can of auto transmission fluid, of which I've only got 2 litres. I'm going to have to get more, but for the moment it'll get us going. And then we'll hook this pump up to a battery, and then we'll be in business, hopefully. See if it makes a mess or not. Battery's dead. Oh, maybe not. It's working a treat. Great stuff. It's going to take a while, mind, but that's what we want. We don't want to rush this. Right, we'll leave that going and I'll bring it back when it's done. So we're now at a point where we can actually crank over the engine, get a bit of gearbox oil and engine oil circulating, get the coolant circulating and all that as well, and see if we build oil pressure. We should be absolutely fine, and that had good oil pressure before I took the engine out, and I didn't do anything to upset that. But what we want to do is make sure there's no leaks or anything like that here now. So let's just spin it over, see how it all sounds, and then we'll check the gearbox oil level afterwards. I checked it before and it's over full, but that's kind of what you'd expect at this point in time. And then we'll need to top it off and have to go and get some more gearbox oil. So that's I won't be able to get it now. But anyway, look, let's spin it over and you guys can keep an eye here and we'll see how it sounds. Right. Nothing. Wonder what that's about. Right, so we're not getting any let's see, is it, just check our starting motor wiring. The starter wiring is on, but I wonder, is there something like a gearbox lockout or something like that that's stopping it from starting? I might need to just connect up the electrical connector and the gear shift. I bet that's what it is actually. Well, let's do that. I know the gearbox is in park, but there is an electrical connector here as well, actually quite a sizable one. So let's see what happens. Okay, so it's later in the day for me now, and what I've done now is I've connected a wire onto the spade terminal of the starting motor, and I'm going to just touch it off the ring terminal on it to see if we can actually get the starter to spin over and bypass all the logic and messing about. So let's see if it spins now. Hey! Let's see. Problem now is that I can't see the dashboard. I'd like to say the oil pressure gauge is going up. Yeah, it did go up and it went back down again just there. So okay, so there's oil circulating. Let's just check the level in the gearbox there now and see if that's circulating at all. Okay, so yeah, the oil is definitely circulating anyway. It's down just above the minimum mark there now at the moment. So I'm going to crank it another little bit. And what I'll need to do is top it off. Well, the plus side of things is it sounds good, but now what I want to do is I actually want to find out why the hell it won't start and turn over with the key. And I'm going to connect up the gear shift as well. Okay, so I have the gear shift all hooked up and everything in the car now, and the link rod going onto the gearbox is in and everything. So we are going to try it again and see if it'll start, because I'm much more hopeful this time. I thought the gearbox was in park, but actually I had it in one, so completely the opposite end of the travel for the lever. So let's see what happens. So, haha, yes! We're in business. And the oil pressure is 100%. That's great. Okay, right, that's a big win. Okay, so it's the moment of truth, and my wife has joined us because obviously it's her car, and she's going to be the one who's actually going to turn the key and see if it actually starts. So let's get you guys in a tripod, and we will have a look and see what it does. I'm cautiously optimistic. I've done all the checks and everything like that, so everything's looking okay. So yeah.
In park.
Yeah, if you want to. It's off its wheels anyway. Just a few. All right. Well, it starts easily anyway. Happy days. A little bit tappity, but we'll give it a little bit of time to just settle in. It's all sounding good though. What's the oil pressure gauge showing us back? Right, perfect. Bit of smoke there, I'm assuming it's just burning off. Definitely needs a good blowout. Right, let's knock it off. Alright, okay, so that's a big win then.
Woohoo!
Yeah. Okay, so I've topped up the gearbox oil now, so I threw another 2 litres into it. So let's see now if we get a bit of drive to the back wheels. Fingers crossed. Yes! Happy days. Great. Now, the smoke is clearing up already. I expected that to happen. Next thing I need to do is sort out the accelerator cable linkage because I have it arse about face and it's not working. I had the cable going onto the top of the linkage and it's supposed to be going onto the bottom. Alright, so now we should have an accelerator. Just start it again, make sure that works, and then we'll be in business. I know I don't need to start to do this, but I want to. It's very hard to tell when the wheels of the car are not on the ground whether or not the gears are actually shifting or not, but I think they actually are, to be honest. So now the other thing I need to do is I need to top up the coolant because unfortunately it sprung a leak and pissed a load of coolant out all over the ground, so I need to actually sort that out as well. But small detail. I need to maybe give a little bit of slack to that cable as well. It's a bit too tight now. So we'll sort that out as well and just basically start getting things put back together. I just topped up the power steering fluid now, so I'm just exercising the steering rack to get the fluid flowing. I'll just top it off again then, it should be good to go. Provided there's no leaks, of course. Okay, so that's a massive success today now, I have to say. I'm really happy. I've got the engine running, the gearbox is driving, the power steering is working, coolant system topped up, the whole shebang, and everything seems to be working the way it's supposed to. The only thing I really need to do is to get it out for a good drive now at this stage. Obviously, I have to put everything back together though. There's a notable absence in the front bumper, for example. So what I'm going to do off camera is I'm going to throw the front bumper back on and the deformation panel and all that jazz, get it down onto its wheels, and then get it out of the garage and we'll have a look at it then. The other thing as well I need to do is take the clutch pedal and slave cylinder out of it and put the wider brake pedal in. So a few little bits and pieces, but I'm not going to bother filming any of that. I'll just show you the end result. Outside. I need more. It needs more gearbox oil. Okay, I think I'll call that a success. So obviously there's a few bits still left to do. Put the bonnet on, obviously being one of the big ones. And the clutch pedal needs to be removed, which I'm going to do now and put the centre console into place. I'm going to do them off camera. They're very difficult to actually try and film anyway, but suffice it to say it's just a couple of bolts really. So I'll get them in, and then there's also a cable that has to go from the gear shift up to the ignition switch to put that in as well. and top off the gearbox oil because it's still low, so it's not fully engaging with the gears properly. So I need to get that topped off and get the oil circulating in the gearbox and all that, and then it should do the job. But it is moving under its own power of sorts. So we're getting pretty close. So I'm going to leave it here on this video, and I suspect this one's going to be quite long, to be honest. And we'll pick it up in a future video where I'll get you up to speed with what else needs doing. And I've also got a few other pretty cool projects on the horizon as well. So please do stay tuned for that. Please do hit the subscribe button before you go, folks. It really does mean a lot to me, and I do appreciate it. And hit the like button as well while you're there. And I will see you in a future video. Thank you very much for watching.